राधा कृष्ण जी की एक फिल्म छोटी सी है, वो दिखाई जाएगी, फिर उसके बाद बाउल का एक कार्यक्रम है।
Well, hello everybody. Please be silent if you want to listen to me, because uh, it's, this yesterday after the presentation, Jasunji has mentioned that I should be, talking more about the Ram Kinkar Bej. Ram Kinkar Bej is one of the foremost sculptors of this country, the father figure of modern Indian sculpture. So, I know that you have been here in Shantiniketan for the last 2 days, and also don't know whether you had the chance to go to Kala Bhavan, because that's the premier institution of Shantiniketan. The Shantiniketan, Vishwabharati has many, many faculties. I mean, you have Vidya Bhavan, Shikha Bhavan, Sangeet, Kala, and everything is there. But I think mostly Shantiniketan is definitely known for the art faculty, which is the Kala Bhavan. And if you really ask me, I mean, how many students in terms of the internationally coming and studying in Shantiniketan, that's always, in Kala Bhavan. Because when I came 51 years back, almost more than 50 years back, when I came as a student here, there were very many students from other countries. I mean, you have people from Germany and French students, and you have Japanese students, and so it's probably one of the best known college, the art college, that was Kala Bhavan. And so I would take much time. I will be showing some images of Ram Kinkar Bej, who has all his life, he has been in Shantiniketan and worked here. And if you have time, I would still say sometime tomorrow or day after, whenever, if you stay back, to go to Shantiniketan Kala Bhavan and see some of the original sculptures of Ram Kinkar Bej. Well, let's start with the images on the open road, my 50 years of my sculpting. There was an exhibition that was curated by a friend of mine, and he gave the title, I'm on the open road, which means I think he meant I'm still on the road. I have many places, maybe some more distance to go around, to go to, and I have covered a lot of distance. So when you talk about Kala Bhavan, this is one of the images that comes to me. This is a center stage of the college, Kala Bhavan, and the Chatal, it is there almost in the middle of the all the departments. And this is one of the stage. I would really say there people had come, performed, and all great people have been there on this place, and they shared great adda. There are a lot of discussions that went through this particular stage. And this is one of the very important work of art done in 1938 when Ram Kinkar was 32-year-old. This is called the Sandal family. And this is an early photograph taken in 1960s. Why I'm showing this early photograph? For the reason that today the sculpture is kept below a canopy for the security of the sculpture, and also naturally the surface is getting decay for the reason that it is done directly with the concrete. At the age of 32, Ram Kinkar had made this monumental sculpture, which is today considered to be the most discussed sculpture of the country, the Santal family. That's again an early photograph which has more details. The sculptor worked directly, can you imagine? It's something that has never been done by any sculptor previously in any part of the world, working directly with the concrete to that kind of a scale, which is one of the largest. And the sculpture later casted, and it is being placed in the Uttarayan campus of Tagore's homes, called the Uttarayan complex. The sculpture, the bronze version of that, is being kept. Today, this bronze has more details. And the next sculpture, the same sandals, they are really represented with a different kind of a speed. They're represented here with, there's a milk cow. I mean, they from the paddy field that they were workers, and now they are working the mill. So the mill call, it's being called that they are running towards the mill. Also, Kinkada himself says that while running towards the mill, they are also drying the cloth. That's what was the scene. So this is another scene from the other angle. One of the things that yesterday I spoke about this Shamali building, which I didn't have the image, and this is the building that is made by Tagore's concept of the architecture, executed by some of the close associates. Mud house, Shamali, that has very many. You can see two reliefs by Ramkinkar Bej with the same mud. Now it's all they're under the ASI and they are doing the maintenance. And this is Sujata, again a concrete sculpture, goes to Buddha. Now, of course, these are all early photographs, so you get the right expression of the Buddha when it was being made. And here you can see Alauddin Khan standing with Nandalal Bose, and that time Kinkada wanted to naturally make a portrait of Alauddin. We don't have a very good photograph of that, for the reason that I was doing the documentation of Ramkinkar. I went to Sangeet Nata Academy in Delhi, asked for, I know the fact that they have it, but they couldn't show me, they couldn't take it out. I think it is lost from the academy. So there's no good photograph existing, but they are not, it's a government property. It is not supposed to be really lost. But it's one of the most beautiful portrait of Alauddin Khan by Ramkinkar Bej. This is Abhinendranath's portrait by Ramkinkar. This is the poet's head. Of course, when you say poet's head and Ramkinkar is working, it has to be Tagore. But then the abstract form of the poet. Because Ramkinkar was very reluctant to do a portrait from life, though he always took the help of the people who sat for him and worked. But Ramkinkar somehow was very hesitant to go to Tagore, ask him, can you sit for, as a model? But Tagore anyway would have been happy, I'm sure. But that chance had come few years before he passed away. He had the chance the poet sat for him. And on this side of the portrait where Ramkinkar is working, that's where you can see poet stooping head and with the arms. Probably he was sitting and reading or writing or something like that, because that sort of a freedom is there. For a sculptor like Ramkinkar, doesn't really want a stiff model. He wants a living model. So obviously he was, the poet took the freedom of reading or writing or whatever. So then later the poet mentioned that, well, I think you are really getting into too much of looking at me and doing the thing with the action of my arms and things like that, where he really decided, no, that's a very big criticism he felt. But it's more of an appreciation. But at the same, he really made a twist. From that, he cuts the arms and all and made the final of this Tagore's head, with Tagore's bust, which is on the left side, which is kept at the Lalit Kala Academy in Delhi. You can see it when you enter Ravindra Bhavan, where you have Sahitya Academy, the building of. Well, there was a student in 1940s that was from Vinodini, and she had come from Manipur. She belonged to the princess, the royal family. So Vinodini Rajkumari. That was the kind of way she was addressed. She was a student, beautiful student. Well, that's what I can say. Very, very beautiful student. So it's a watercolor made by Ramkinkar. So you can see Vinodini in white sari. Those years, many of the students that I could see from the documentation, that they wore very, very simple and white saris and a kind of, there's the tremendous, an innocence. And you can see this next drawing where Vinodini and Ramkinkar, they are going to the field for doing some sketches. That was very important, etching of Ramkinkar. Now, you can see Ramkinkar here is just a little clip from the National Film Development Corporation. I don't know whether you could. No? It's not loading. Possible? No. There's from this canal that you cross and you go to Popeye, and just before the Popeye, you can see that there's a Polkadai village here, where Ramkinkar used to be a regular visitor to the spot where he kept on drawing from life, a lot of things that he looks at, because I told you yesterday about the system of learning was direct from life.
The strong virile Ram Kinkor loves to go to the village of Gawanpara and paint all day long.
There are not very many documentary films being made on him prior to this. This was one of the earliest by, one of the filmmakers, and he discontinued making it, and then Jamini Roy's son, maybe grandson, completed the film. So, this again a portrait where Vinodini was seated and direct from life that he did the portrait, and it is in the collection of Kala Bhavan. You can see on the other side that they traveled together to Shillong. This is one of the sculptures. Yesterday I talked about the harvester, which was broken, and again the kind of criticism and the kind of discussion that has gone around. Harvester, which is a bronze car. This is the original photograph of the concrete, and this is again a maquette model of the Gandhiji, the Dandi March. Of course, he made a large one. There are some series of sculptures which were made in 1950s, middle of 50s, that he was asked to do a sculpture for the Reserve Bank of India in Delhi in Parliament Street. So he did a series of Yakshi, a series of sculptures inspired from the Didarganj Yakshi. This is a large stone sculpture which is there. Like there are two at the gate of RBI on both sides that you can see the sculptures of Ramkinkar, Yaksha and Yakshi. Is the Yakshi over there?
Sir, tell us about this project, how it happened and what all went through, and the revision of the budget.
Yeah, because sincerely speaking, for every project, for every sculpture, there is a tremendous story behind. Because somebody who really wanted to do big, and at the same time, people, because he was already a very famous sculptor in 1950s, when the Reserve Bank of India was being made on Parliament Street, the government of India, till then, there has never been a commission to any sculptor to do a public sculpture. So it's the first public sculpture after India became independent, and he was chosen to be, because many sculptors were asked to submit the models, and his work was approved for the reason that it's almost like, that demigods, which are of much larger than life size, to be kept in front of the, like at the entrance on both the sides as great, what do you call it? They are the guardian figures. They are just holding the whole money, that whole treasure, whole wealth. So they wanted, it's like kind of getting into a building where you feel a kind of a tremendous sense of security. So these two figures were conceived, and he wanted, though he was not a sculptor, he was not a carver, but he wanted it to be of that scale, 21 feet it is, because it's meant to be larger than life, because then only that feeling of, that you call it something beyond human, that feeling has to be naturally evocated out of that two figures. So he chose the stone in a place in Baigjnath in Himachal Pradesh. He identified the stone, but the kind of money that was sanctioned, that with that money he could not really sort of, midway he has not reached. He went to the site, took the stone. He had the idea that the stone could be easily brought to the site in Parliament Street, which was not possible. So what happened was that it was a meter gauge train, the railways. They could not bring the intact size of that stone. So it had to be naturally cut into pieces. And doing something in pieces and then putting them together on a height like that was impossible with the kind of technology. So the money that was sanctioned was 70,000 rupees for these two projects. I think the money was finished almost before he started carving at the site. Money was fully finished. And also, being a sculptor of that kind, never knew how to manage money also. And he never bothered, because you see, this kind of a project can be done only with a great collective effort. So many carvers will be sitting and carving and at the site. And every time a crane comes and, lifting it and placing it and seeing it and, bringing it down, it's a kind of a continuous process with a collective effort. So he was very disappointed the way it was being happened. But Um, well, there are so many stories that there's many things that has happened that he could not do the project. The first sculpture project from the government that was given to him could not be completed for the reason that the money was so less, and he paid the debt till he died. I mean, that's the kind of a scenario it was, because it was very, very difficult. Later, the government of India, with the governor of the RBI, and they all had meetings, series of meetings, and decided that some more money could be given to him to complete the project. But so it took years. So by 1961-62, the sculpture was in place. And so I think it's one of the most discussed, most important, public sculpture in Delhi of Ramkinkar. I don't think that Ramkinkar has done anything of that scale even after that or even before, especially in stone. Well, it was a year before he passed away. I approached Ramkinkar being a student. Well, could you, I'm very keen on doing a portrait. That message reached to him, and he was very happy to sit for me. And I was 24 when I made this portrait. Well, I'm now shifting again back to one of the other teachers. That was Sharbari Roy Chaudhary. See, when I came, there were two persons. One is Sharbari Roy Chaudhary on one side, who came in the place of Ramkinkar. I would say in 1969. Ramkinkar was retiring from the college. So Sharbari was chosen to be. I mean, this is one of the earliest photographs. I am very fond of this photograph. I am showing how handsome he was. He was probably one of the.
one more request. Tell us that the Ramkinkar bag Indira Gandhi story. You skip the Jawaharlal Nehru story, but you should mention what happened when Indira Gandhi came and found that he's living in a hut.
Yeah, no, that. See, of course, it's even when I came. I mean, 1974, when I came here, maybe the end of the year itself, I had the opportunity to go and see him. And though I didn't know a single word of Bangla, and, I went and I was told that, you can meet him because he doesn't like receiving people, friends, any students or something like that. So I was told that by Sharvarida, I was told that you can meet him maybe with some, water lilies. So I gathered some water lilies and we met him, and he was, I mean, that was his weakness. So I made him melt before the flowers. So he had a beautiful expression on his face, and he asked, well, where are you from, and this and that, and I could see him in a small little hut where he was working, because most of his paintings were done in the hut. Most of the sculptures were made in the department because the clay and the other facilities, but I could see he was always at it. And I know in one of the films that was made by Hrithik Khatak, and he was being questioned, he was asked, well, Ramkinkar, well, apni ei badite ki kore achen bolun, ki mane what are the kind of problems that you are facing and this and that. Are problem to ache to thakbei because of देखो ये माटी बाड़ी to maintain कराটা খুব মুশকিল. It's very tough to maintain, this house, and also it could be falling anytime. This roof could be falling anytime. And once it so happened, he was mentioning that once it so happened that the water was leaking into the room, and he says that my paintings came to the right use when the water was coming, that he could put a canvas over there. Today, those canvases which were protecting him from the rain, those canvases are in KNMA museums. So what I'm trying to say, the man who could even think about spending any extra money on any maintenance on his personal level, but he was very, very much passionate about what money that he had to spend on the materials that would give him scope for making sculptures. I mean, that was what was all his life work. So Indira Gandhi, I knew about it, that this is the situation, because she studied here, and then she offered a space, a kind of, there's, we call it Andrews Ganj. There's a place where a 3-bedroom apartment was given to him, a house was given to him, but he was very sad to shift that place. I kept on talking to this, people about it even later. Even one of the book that we had published, on connection with his centenary, that while releasing the book in Kolkata, I said that shifting was a very good idea, I can understand, but for him, it was very painful because the man who could connect with that mud house, or the man who that oi martyr body, that is where that had the right smell, the quality of space, the kind of light probably he enjoyed over there. Also, it's something, a kind of a belonging that he developed over a period of time. We just cannot make a shift of a person like Ramkinger to in these concrete squares, cubes. So intention was good to shifting him so that he survives, but not to live. Living and surviving makes a lot of difference in that. And I am seeing in the whole transition that I saw him in the hut, I saw him in the other building. He could not draw anything from after shifting to that house. I have been seeing in the 74, 75, 76, I could see him coming to the department and working. But after the shift, I never saw him much in the department coming and working. What made him to be sad? He always there was a khatia, he sat on that, looked through the window, I don't know what was he looking at. And I think he was sort of sinking into that kind of a state. Was it a great idea? In 1980, he passed away, but I'm seeing it for almost 3 years prior to that he was shifted. But it was not a great idea. The intention was good, I can understand, but the intention should have been this way. One could have done that Ramkinger's house could be repaired to make it livable. Probably that would have been the right choice, I feel. But I was nobody as a student to say that. But that shift was not a great idea because from a very personal space, you are being taken to an impersonal one that really disconnect you mentally and even physically. It happens to me. Well, I'm talking about this Sharvari Roy Choudhury because these were the two persons very, very close to me, and they were sculptors, and even Sharvari also was one of the person who was I think he was 37-year-old. He was in Kolkata, not wanting to come and teach anywhere. He was in Florence. He came back, was no work. That was the time in 1970. I mean, where is the way that you could make a living with the sculptures? There's no takers for all those things. So when he was offered this job, Sharvari was offered this job in Shantiniketan Vishwabharati, and he was almost like sort of tossing and find out whether to come or not. But, well, it turned out to be that, for doing further works and all, maybe that was the only choice. So Sharvari made his one of the self-portraits, a tiny piece. The man who, when you are seeing somebody making huge monumental sculptures like Ramkinger on one side, and you have people making small, tiny sculptures on the left side, the other side. See the self-portrait. The size is so small, but all the details are there. This is the size, 4 inches. But look at the detailing of how cleverly and how the sensitive the whole modeling. The self-portrait from all angles that I have. And he kept on doing the school of this portrait making that was started in Shantiniketan by Ramkinger, then definitely followed by Sharvari Roy Choudhury, who was a student of Pradosh Dasgupta. Because Sharvari studied in Calcutta Art College. He's not from Shantiniketan. So, well, this was when I was a student on the left side, and the right side Sharvari Roy Choudhury. And in between you can see one Mohim Rudro, he's a Swedish painter, and then Yunus Hussain Khan. Yunus Hussain Khan is the nephew, one of the nephews of Fayaz Ali Khan. Yeah, so he's based in Delhi. So he came as an assistant professor here in Sangeeta Bhavan, but though he could not continue to be for whatever reasons, because there is a tremendous internal conflicts and dilemma. Again, I have to bring that subject of dilemma here also, how to go about it and all, So here Pradosh Dasgupta is one of the foremost sculptors, again one of the sculptors who was heading in Kolkata Art College. But his background is different. He studied in Madras under D.P. Roy Choudhury, and he went to Royal College of Art in London, and he comes back in 1948 and he joined as a professor in India. And Sharvari Roy Choudhury and many other students were all the first batch of students of the Calcutta Art College, where he was a very dominant person. Shri Aurobindo always tell me, you should meet my guru, because I always consider Shri Aurobindo as my guru. But हम लोग तो guru है ही नहीं. But you should meet my guru. The man who had a sharp nose, he always says that. And a खूब ऊंचू नाक, शितक बोले ना, kind of. And that is because of, he's very angry man also, it seems like. So Shri Aurobindo made a portrait of him. And that is, you can see Shri Aurobindo and him together. And he made a portrait of him with a big nose. I don't know what was the reaction of Pradosh Dasgupta looking at that portrait, because look at the nose. He is extremely with very pointed, sharp weapon like, kind of. But it's a very beautiful, you can see the resemblance of Pradosh Dasgupta and everything in it. But Dasgupta, I've been very close to Dasguptas, but he never commented anything on that. But he always knew. So when I did the portrait of my guru, I told Shri Aurobindo, you did with a big nose to your teacher, but I'm going to do one without the nose. Yeah, because in my portrait there is no nose. But nobody is missing it. And Shri Aurobindo told me, you have not done the nose, but I can see my nose. I said, you can place anybody's nose over there. Because it's the way I thought it's a vacant, you can fill up the gap. But I think this is one of the best portraits that I have done, because I can see him here. And after this, I have not made any attempt. I did many portraits when I was a student here. Ramkinkar's portrait and many others. I never made an attempt of making Shri Aurobindo's portrait, because I'll be very disappointed if I cannot see him in it. Because I could really see him in this portrait, and that was it. And never made a portrait of him. Sharbari and myself, when we were, soon after my studies, Sharbari, it's later part of Sharbari was sort of making some effort of reaching. There is part of the documentary I have taken.
The words last was chosen to during remains with his work.
Sharbari could manage to do sculptures of this scale, but it looks so monumental. The size of the sculpture is 2 to 3 inches size. All that. They are freestanding sculptures. There is no base. They are standing on their legs without getting fixed on any kind of a base. But with the kind of details, they are all, figures, little tiny figures with the kind of, I don't know how could he manage to do it. He always had a round, small specks on his nose. And he just always kept on doing almost like, a kind of a meditative approach. But at the end of the day, he will come out with a small tiny sculpture, a wax sculpture, and he will carry that sculpture in his pocket. And he would go back and maybe make a bronze out of it. In 1966, when in America, when he had a one-man show, one-man show that he had, many people said, and it's also read it, that he carried his one-man show in a few pockets. It was possible for him. Well, when Ali Akbar Khan came to Delhi, Ali Akbar Khan comes not for definitely a particular reasons, because he doesn't have the kind of music that Sharbari has. Ali Akbar Khan comes and asking him, Sharbari, I want to listen to the music of mine when I was 14. So Sharbari will take out Ali Akbar at 14 and on the spool, and he would take out and listen to his own music, which doesn't exist anywhere else. Such music collector has never existed in this country. That Sharbari collects with many drinks, very many ways. Even Akashvani, or they really would exchange music. So he will get what he doesn't have, and he will give something that they exchange programs. So he sat for him to do this Ali Akbar's portrait. And the way he traveled, I told you yesterday about Giacometti. I was talking about the Giacometti, who he photographed. And he had great, acceptance by many of the masters outside the country also. He has been very appreciated, and And he always wanted to know how others. So our learning was his experience was given to us by talking about what he saw. A relief by Sharbari, a Tagore, a relief by him, and this is again Alauddin Khan by Sharbarida, because it was very different from Sharbarida and Ramkinkar's. You can see Alauddin Khan being made. Yeah. And of course, everybody knows Siddheshwari Devi, another angle of Siddheshwari Devi in singing posture. And you have Bede Ghulam Ali Khan, also this. And you can see Sharbari standing with the head. Extremely pleasing, extremely kind of a colorful person that he was. Nobody can take a portrait like that with the Bede Ghulam Ali being carried like that. This is the portrait of, the portrait which is of Ali Akbar in the National Gallery of Museum, NGMA. Ali Akbar Khan also wanted a he sat for him, but he doesn't have a copy. So he wanted one copy for it. Then he said, well, you have to pay me money for getting a portrait. Then Ali Akbar said, then you have to pay money for my sitting. So ultimately the compromise that just against the expenditure, that work was given to him. Kishore Bhai Karkar, you can see it's one of the most beautiful portrait.
Where is this one now?
Oh, it's gone to one of the institutions of Karkar institutions somewhere in Pune, I suppose it's. This is Ramkinkar Sharbari and Ajanda Di Sharbarida's wife, who was a music student here. And Ajanta Di was, when you date, a professor dates with a student and end up in a marriage. Yeah, Ramkinkar, and the kind of body language is sometimes it's fantastic. Ramkinkar and Sharbari. Sharbari stands almost like kind of a student before him. And Sharbari's portrait of Ramkinkar. And one of the reclining figures of Sharvil Roy Choudhury, which was a very common subject that has been depicted in a series of reclining women that he made over a period of time. He was very fond of Hanuman. And I said, well, why are you always making Hanuman? I always asked him. He said, I'm not making him, he's chasing me. So the process that Hanuman is one of the, I don't know, wherever he looks, if there is a figure which doesn't have a tail also, he would say that, I think there is a little Hanuman inside that. You can see again the Hanuman carrying the mountains, but done in a different scale. Look at the flying one. He kept on doing portraits because that was one of the most sensitive thing that he has always, that did a lot to him, because expressions, human expressions. With Mallikarjun Mansoor, I remember Mallikarjun Mansoor comes here to celebrate his birthday with Sharbari. And I was thinking that, Pulo Deshpande playing harmonium and Mallikarjun sitting and singing. And I was in the next room, and my job was to, delegate everything and how the best of hospitality could be offered to them.
We understood what you meant.
Yes, that's right. And look at Sharvarida's expression before him. This is a great sculptor called Marino Marini in Italy, and he went for a scholarship because meeting him itself is a dream for all of us, because now they are all not there. It's like today when we talk about, Ramkinkar, how many people have seen him? So, we were just one of the few people who really could meet with Marino Marini. And I remember coming to Shantiniketan frequently, and just a year before he passed away. And he was not wanting to leave me. He said, you are not going to go back. But, the situation was such that I had to naturally go back to Delhi, where I was based. So when you leave him, he always had a very sad expression on his face. And but with a smile. But it is one of the saddest expression I felt. I mean, I don't know whether any other student was close to him. And when I left, Sharbrida's wife told me that, recently also told me 2 years back, that he has not taken any other student. He went to the college, he teaches and comes back, but he never became anybody, he didn't come close to a student to be, because it was very painful for him, for us to be separated. And it was not 8 years of this thing, but it was a lifetime contact that I had with him. Well, I think it is 6:25. I can stop here instead of taking my sculptures. That will be a different kind of a story.
Do they adjust for 5-10 minutes or should they close?
I don't know, it's 6:25.
Hello.
और मैं तो यहीं पे वहीं पे बैठा है आप कहाँ हाँ आओ ना
If 5 minutes more, or you choose one that's good.
Okay. All right. You can see images. Maybe I can possibly. I can just run through some images. Is that okay? And if you want to see, because I normally, before I show about my works, I talk about the school, I talk about my masters, and then I will just introduce to one of my characters. This Shantiniketan is, where we are sitting, we have many villages, Sandal villages around. So if you really walk across, you can see coming winter, now onwards, that you can see people are sitting on the roadside and making jaggery and selling it. You can see that because the roads were all such anyway, and you can see plenty of villages. And that chance, if you have a chance, you should really see some of the villages. So when I was walking one of the villages, in Sandal villages, I could find with one of the character called Musui. His name is Musui. He was just standing by the roadside. And I made a full life-size sculpture of him. And I took the head off and then went to Delhi with that sculpture. And it was a permanent fixture in my studio in Delhi. And, that sculpture was there, and I was active with many other sculptures. This is one of the sculptures that is called the Sitting on a Split Vase. It's in the India Heritage Center. When you enter, you can see it on both sides. One is a Chandala rider. So, when I was asked by the ITC if I could do a sculpture for the travel, I thought maybe rickshaw is a very good motive. And I used Musui's head. It's a maquette, small model. Musui became the carrier. And then I made a big size Musui kept on the ITC building rooftop, where I am sitting behind the rickshaw and Musui is pulling it. So I still feel, sometimes when he asks me, well, are you still with Musui? I said, I am always sitting behind him. He takes me to world. He took me to different countries. And I think Musui is still carrying me around. And I'm not tired. And I can understand even Musui is not. So Musui became a rat catcher. And she becomes, and the Musi's counterpart, the female counterpart is called Maya. Maya in Bengali, it's called girl. Maya. So the Maya becomes a writer, and also he becomes Jesus. And also becomes, if he can be a Jesus, Musi could be a devil. A Mullah Nasruddin, and also a graduate here, not a postgraduate, because she's holding only one. And there are two here, and it's kept in the Kamala Nehru College in Delhi. And so they are holding each other's head. Inseparable, but still coming together on a base. Angel, and becomes Nataraj. And also she becomes the Mona Lisa. And, she could be walking. There's something impish about her. And impishness is even somebody who can walk on the water. So I was just, I shifted to a studio where I could see unauthorized colony. Many people are coming as workers, migrant workers. No identity, tiny figures, hundreds of them being placed on a cube, calling them human boxes, getting into all kinds of spaces. They are together walking, Maya and Musi, multiplying the numbers of Musis and Mayas, and becomes 6 to 10 and 10 to 100. And running around, and they really run to be reaching out to, what you call it? Paramahamsa, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So she becomes Sharda Ma, And Musi is still there. I keep coming. Musi is still there in the in the village, working in the canteen, tea shops here around. So Musi becomes, a kind of freehold characters. I kept one by one. So writer is a very common thing that I keep doing of all these characters, all these Musi, different kind of movements, which has no reference to the actual movements in life. And when I have enough sculptures for 2 years, 3 years that I keep working, I have a very big collection of freeholder sculptures. Then I take them to an exhibition sometime in Bombay or wherever. That's what I do normally. And though she carries a boat, and she carries also a home, and he's being sheltered by himself, and he becomes a turtle, sometimes comes out to preach. And Musi looks at the mirror and seeing Maya in it, and they are also crossing the pitfall. And it becomes a terrafly in the middle of the people. And this terrafly, I took it to like larger than life. The terrafly become the actual size in Kalabhavan. And then tiny figures are being made hundreds and thousands in numbers. And they are really merging into the space in all kinds of things. And they come out as smokes in the middle of things. They really are getting into the kind of voyage and inserted into the webs, human web, and the tiny breezes and light, intangible and tangible, because what is tangible is on one side, and the intangible things like steam, heat, light, and all lot of things. All kinds of nostalgic vessels are being used from my childhood, and then the ankitis and the idli makers and fan and torchlight, rubber tapping, and the bugs around the light, and ephemerical existence with the thing moth going to the light and dies, and the series of things that were all reaching out to the light and going near to the light, but you can see them, they don't make it to the light. They are ascending and descending in different scales. Musi was getting older. He was also building up a kind of a beard like me. He was still around in Shantiniketan. Well, I started capturing. There's no number. There's no change. I mean, a lot of scales changes. I started a project to myself, working hundreds of figures of Musis are being placed on one platform. The platform turned out to be a big ramp. The studio was full. There's no place for me to stand, and ultimately, the sculpture was exhibited in Birla Academy and in Delhi. When I do the slideshow, sometimes people sleep. So I do this for waking them up. It is taken to a different kind of a scale. The ramp leaving a shadow behind. It's around 52 feet long. Sculpture was probably one of my lifetime. I really never knew that I would do something bigger after this. But when Supreme Court of India asked me if I could do a sculpture for the site, because nobody Supreme Court of India never asks anybody to do anything, because we are scared to go and do something because they will judge you. So in my case, they were very happy. They said to me that we will not judge you. We are choosing you. We are not choosing your art. I said, well, that's also a difficult situation. But anyway, I did something that's very large to be kept in the water. The sculpture is done with hundreds and hundreds of figures of huge constitution as a flourishing tree. The sculpture is installed over there. Yeah. So I think, what happens is that this place, Supreme Court, this place people cannot, it's a public sculpture, it's open to sky, but public cannot go there. I said, well, what is the meaning? No, you have to commit a crime to go to and see that sculpture. So that's the situation today. So he becomes a savior. And also lastly, I was working on for almost 5 years, building up a crowd. Musis and Mayas, not rubbing each other's shoulders, making a kind of doesn't really making you comfortably reaching out to be a part of the crowd, because crowd is something I'm scared of. But when I made my crowd, I'm not afraid anymore. So I could manage to see that I could get into the crowd. So that was the last biggest project that they have taken up. The crowd is everywhere. And then, 2 years back, I started. My foundation is operating from Delhi. It's a place called Tokarun, and I'm very happy to invite you. And I'm look forward to spend some time with all of you. After an hour or so. Looking forward after your program. You're coming to Tokarun, and we'll be happy to spend some time together. Looking forward. Thank you so much.